I was thinking of the best way to start and introduce this video, and the best thing I came up with is this. Tottenham Hotspur reminds me of a guy that I knew back at high school called Chris. Now, Chris is a normal guy. However, for whatever reason, he got picked on by the popular group in my high school between, year 7, year 8, year 9. But in year 10, he was no longer picked on. For no other reason than it simply got sad. The term beating a dead horse comes to mind, where it's no longer entertaining to even bother trying to pick him as a target, and you move on to something else. That is the best way that I can describe Tottenham Hotspur. And I know that you're typing it. No, Chris is not me. I got bullied the entirety of my high school experience. Alright boys, if you can drop a like on the video, let's try to hit 3,000 likes, and of course subscribe if you're new. I want to hit 500,000 by the end of this year. And of course, by the way, you know what it is, my own company, mazaladesigns.co.uk, link down below, top of the description for the best football prints in the market, all made by myself. Code YouTube for 10% off all items. And let's get into the video. A generation of failure, a generation of losing. And despite, of course, some rival fans will make jokes about Tottenham, the general Tottenham meme about not winning anything is kind of boring now. Like, no one actually really cares. The only time that people do care is when they end up playing in one of the cups. Of course, this year being knocked out yet again in the League Cup quite early on. However, in the first round they entered, they got knocked out by Fulham on penalties. And as the FA Cup third round is right around the corner, and they are indeed playing my team Burnley, I was thinking, I felt this feeling before, when even as a neutral, I'm kind of hoping that Tottenham goes far in a cup for no other reason other than it would be funny to see. By no means have I got any link to Spurs whatsoever, and realistically I should actually not like them at all for making me cry when I was 10 years old back in the 2008 Carling Cup semi-final second leg. I still hate you, Roman Pavlyuchenko. I hope that you are not doing well. Why don't Tottenham win trophies? I mean, it's quite a simple question, right? I mean, in football, in sport, there's absolutely no guarantee that you should win anything. However, history does like to repeat itself, and the teams that typically win the most trophies end up usually always winning trophies eventually. Manchester United, despite their poor form in recent years, always ends up winning a trophy. Same thing with Arsenal. Despite their poor form in the last decade, other than the last year or so, they've always popped up with trophies when it matters, if it's the Europa League for United or the FA Cups for Arsenal. And then there's Spurs, which since their last trophy in 2008, they've only been in 3 finals. Of course, a League Cup final most recently, another League Cup final in 2015, and of course, for some people they may say somehow, a Champions League final, which by all means was, to everyone involved that was not a Liverpool fan, the most boring game in all existence. And I say that as a person that was inside Liverpool in a pub in Liverpool, and even we found it boring. I did a video 9 months ago going into Spurs and the entire history step by step, season by season, and I felt that there's no need to really do that because I've kind of already covered that topic. I mean, it's so common that they've even done an article titled Tottenham's 15 most shambolic cup exits of the last 15 trophyless years. We are reaching a generation here. If they do not win anything this year, then that means that if you were born in 2008, as we are now in 2024, Happy New Year, then that means that they would be turning 16. Therefore, they can legally drive, and as far as I'm concerned, that counts as a generation. And in the last 15 years, I will list off their big losses. Colchester. They got knocked out by Colchester, mate. Can you point out where Colchester is on the map? No offense, but most people can't. I can't, and I like to think that I know most teams in the EFL. Thank you, Football Manager. Juventus in 17-18, not exactly an embarrassing club, but you know exactly what court I'm thinking of. Here's a picture of it. I don't need to say it, because it may actually trigger more Spurs fans. By the way, if you're a Spurs fan watching this, I don't know why. I don't know why, but thanks. Make sure to subscribe. Norwich in 2012-13, and then Norwich again in 1920. at home in the 5th round of the FA Cup. It got so bad that Eric Dyer tried to fight someone in the stands. Everton in the 5th round of the FA Cup, 5-4. Knocked out by Palace at home in the FA Cup 5th round. Again, Tottenham beat Ghent in the 16-17 Europa League, round of 32. Mislav Orsic. I'm so sorry. Again, why are Spurs fans here? You shouldn't be. Dinamo Zagreb, a 3-0 loss, which they were already 2-0 up in aggregate. They bottled it in Croatia. Incredible. Genuinely. FA Cup semi-final, lost to Portsmouth. And then most recently, last season, knocked out in the FA Cup 5th round again to Sheffield United. That is a list of about 10 times they were knocked out, all in games that they really should have won. Or at least on paper, they were the favourite team. Of course, this is football, and not everything is done on paper. So instead of the history, let's go into the now. What's happening to Spurs to stop this happening? Well, of course, the big name that everyone is talking about is, of course, Ange. But I want to talk about the owners first, because they are really, in my opinion, what is the most important thing to highlight here. Because Daniel Levy, of course, has done some great things for Tottenham Hotspur. You can't deny that he has done good things for Spurs, more than bad. Tottenham Hotspur was, of course, a historic club before he arrived. Daniel Levy joined Tottenham Hotspur in 2000 and took over after the previous ownership, Alan Sugar. I still forget and find it crazy that he actually owned Spurs before that too. Before Daniel Levy came in, Tottenham Hotspur was seen as probably in the category of, let's say, an Everton, an Aston Villa, definitely probably more than a Chelsea, being seen bigger than Chelsea. This is, of course, before Roman Abramovich came in. So by no means may I say that Tottenham Hotspur were a small club, and they are still not a small club prior or now. They are still worthy of being in that top 6 conversation, but that is due to consistency and, of course, their heritage. That's what's kind of propped them up, and of course how much money they make, as they have by far the best stadium in the country now. However, there is a group of Spurs fans that are tired about how the club is run. Despite all these new fancy little things, a new training ground and a new stadium, nothing has still changed, and they find their failure to win trophies as a failure on part of the owners, ENIC. The ENIC Group, which is a British investment company, if you cared, and ENIC owns 86% of Tottenham Hotspur. There was protest this time last year against Manchester City with a banner titled "Longest Trophy Drought in 71 Years," with another banner with a gravestone which reads Daniel Levy ENIC at the top with one trophy and ends with "Didn't listen to the fans." To many people, this is a distasteful banner and is unfair to claim all failure of winning a trophy in 15 years all purely on the ownership. And of course, throughout that, you may say that all the other positives around the club in terms of how much money is invested in terms of the new stadium, the new facilities, all things that, by the way, for example, Manchester United have not had since Daniel Levy's been in charge, really. There is the saying that sometimes the grass is not always greener, and is that something that you can put in Tottenham Hotspur's court? So if Spurs was to get new ownership, realistically the only ownership that can really actually afford the club is probably, you guessed it, oil states. And just this year, an article came out that Daniel Levy was indeed open to selling a stake in Tottenham, in quote-unquote, for the best interest of the club. So you would like to think that if you are a club with the infrastructure that Spurs has, the amount of investment put into it, into facilities, into transfers, into almost every area, that success has to be around the corner. That is how you would like to think football worked. But it's not happened yet. But you would like to think eventually it would, surely, right? The most frustrating part about all of this for a Spurs fan is that Tottenham are a good team. They are a good team, and they should be performing and be on the top end of cups much more often. In the past, they've been sometimes the second tier club, where they've been in the second tier of English football, so them not winning trophies is understandable. However, financially, of course, and in terms of their facilities, they are at the top of the top table. Been in the top flight since 1978. They've been in Europe for 16 of the last 17 seasons, and top 4 used to be the holy grail. If you don't believe that, then watch back Peter Crouch's goal v Man City back in 2009-2010. It was a great moment. But now they've been in the top 4 for 7 of the last 14 years. And you may say, yeah, but with modern football, typically the same teams win the same trophies each year. There's always going to be a City or Liverpool or Chelsea or an Arsenal. But in the last 15 years, you've seen many teams that realistically shouldn't be winning a trophy do so. Birmingham City, Swansea City, Portsmouth, Wigan, Leicester, of course. I mean, they've won the FA Cups and the League Cups, and I mean, Christ, Leicester also won the Premier League, and Spurs realistically should have won it that year if they were on top of their game, as that was a poor season for everyone involved. The other winners showcases that there is always an element of randomness in dictating who wins what. So what does it come down to? Is it luck? Are so many of these games decided by minor details? Well, in some part, yes. I mean, we can't forget that in the Champions League final, they really lost the game due to Sadio Mane kicking the ball onto Moussa Sissoko's arm. In no world should that be given as a penalty, especially not in the first minute of the Champions League final. I don't think even Liverpool fans think that should be a penalty. And realistically, it barely even hit his arm. Like, it hit more of his shoulder than his arm for me. I would like to think where the sleeve typically ends on a football shirt, that's typically where, past that, where the arm is exposed, that's kind of where the arm starts. And that would be considered for me the sleeve. I just can't believe that was actually given 1 minute into a Champions League final. I think it was 13 seconds, actually. What's the exact second mark? 22. Sorry, my bad. 22 seconds. What about Vorm? The semi-final against Manchester United. Should he have done better to keep out under Herrera's winner? Possibly. What if Spurs held on against Arsenal at White Hart Lane in 15-16? Would they have gone on and put pressure on Leicester and go on to win the Premier League? Maybe. But you could do this all day. And in theory would mean absolutely nothing. These little details, no matter how small they could be, does make a difference. So is it luck or is it mentality? The quote, "It is the history of the Tottenham," is memed and of course is quite hilarious because it's actually something that you can't deny is probably not correct at this stage. You may say the recent history of the Tottenham to be more accurate, I guess, but you know, I don't think it's mentality because under Pochettino, they did win quite a lot of games, more games than any other manager. And when he brought in managers with that quote-unquote winning mentality, like Jose Mourinho, like Antonio Conte, when they came in, why didn't Spurs win anything? Well, you may say, probably don't sack Mourinho a couple of days prior to a cup final, and for that I would say, fair enough. So lastly, what's the priority? Is it the money, or is it the silverware? Of course, winning a cup does bring in more money, but the most money you can possibly get as a club at this level is the Champions League, even being in the competition. So it can be argued that the owners of Tottenham Hotspur cares more about top 4 and just being in the conversation than going all the way in the cup. So would you accuse Tottenham Hotspur of prioritising just being in top 4 other than going all the way in a cup? They seem to always get knocked out in the 5th round of the FA Cup. That is quite a common theme. And I've somehow gone all this way into this video without really speaking about Ange. Ange, of course, has helped Daniel Levy and the fan base in terms of getting more of a connection to the club, as of course under Antonio Conte, it was extremely toxic. And I don't blame Spurs fans really at all because it was, from the outside, a complete mess. And similar can be said about Jose Mourinho, as it can be seen from a fan's perspective that the club was not really looking at the future and was simply trying to get short-term fixes on one simple goal, and that is try to win something. And Conte and Mourinho are both clear winners. They have won so much in their career. You can understand why they would go that route, but clearly for the long-term health of the club, it was short-sighted. Ange feels different. It feels like a person to really bring the fans together and to believe in a goal together, believe in a project that has been incredibly successful. The mood of Tottenham fans has been remarkable to see in the last couple of weeks and months. Despite in kind of November, early December, there was quite a lot of poor form that could be obviously put down to their injuries. And by the way, despite that awful 5 games in November, December, they are still only 3 points behind first place Liverpool. They're still in it. By no means am I saying that Spurs can go on to win the league, but what I am kind of saying is, Ange Bow winning the Premier League, baby. So there you go, boys. I hope you guys did enjoy. I do hope that Spurs win something soon, just because I find it kind of boring now. However, they do play Burnley in the FA Cup third round. It'd be really funny, genuinely funny, if we go on to somehow beat them. I don't know how. Don't know how we'll beat Spurs at their ground. But I mean, if I know anything about Tottenham, they could always surprise you. Yeah, if you guys did enjoy, smash a like button and also subscribe if you're new. Thank you for 403,000 subscribers. Let's try to hit 3,000 likes. And I will see you next time. Peace out.